Good morning. Y'all are chatting it up. I love it. I told first service when Vince initially had that idea and he told me about it, I'm like, I don't know, Vince. I don't know if they're going to like it. Y'all are loving it. Y'all are crushing it. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to The Bridge. My name is Kristen Cave, and I'm so happy. Hi, guys. Hi. It is so good to be here with y'all this morning as we are closing out the series we've been in the last few weeks called The Fastest Way to Change Your Life. This series is based on the book that our lead pastor, Vince, wrote and just recently released. And I had the really incredible opportunity to get to work on this book with him. That is actually my full-time job as I work with pastors and I help them write and develop content. So it was cool to get to work with my own pastor on this book. So we've been going through this series, and this series is really for the person who you're wanting to experience some kind of change in your life. Maybe you're wanting your marriage to get better, you're wanting your relationship with your kids to improve, you're wanting to make progress in your finances, your career, your friendships, your dating life, the way you view your singleness, your mental health, whatever. There's something about your life that you want to see change. And we've talked about how as Christians, if we want any area of our life to change, we have to start with spiritual change because that's what's really going to get the ball rolling for us. And so we've talked about how the secret to spiritual change is to start by meeting your basic spiritual needs. And we really honed in on 3 specific spiritual needs throughout the series. We've talked about our need for connection to God, our need for connection to people, and our need for connection to purpose. Now, Vince spent a week on each of these already, so if you missed any of them, I would highly recommend you go back and watch them on our YouTube channel. They were so good. But today, I am really talking to the person who you're wanting your life to change, you're wanting to make progress in some area, and you're already doing all of this. In fact, you've probably been doing it for a while. And you would say that, yeah, Kristen, when I started meeting these basic spiritual needs, it had a huge impact on my life. My life was changing. I was growing. But then it was like one day I just woke up and my life wasn't changing anymore. Maybe that was a week ago for you. Maybe that was a year ago. Whatever the case is, you're saying, yeah, Kristen, I am connected to God. I come to church. I read my Bible. I'm connected to people. I'm in a group. I have Christian friends. I'm connected to my purpose. I'm on a team. I'm serving. I'm doing all the things you're telling me to do, and yet I still feel stuck. Or to put it another way, you're saying, I'm working the plan, but the plan stopped working. I'm working the plan, but the plan stopped working. And if that is you this morning, I want you to know, first of all, I know exactly how you feel. I get it. It reminds me of a few years ago, I decided I was going to go on this weight loss journey, this health journey, right? I wanted to lose some weight, want to get healthier, take better care of myself. So I start doing things that you need to do to get healthier, right? So I start eating more meals at home and cooking them at home instead of going out to eat all the time. I started getting more active. So I was playing tennis. I was playing basketball. I was going to jazzercise classes with a bunch of women who were old enough to be my grandma. And before you judge me, it was great. And it was so fun. So don't knock jazzercise till you try it. Okay, but I was getting active and I was drinking more water, I'm getting more sleep, I'm doing all the things you need to do to get healthy. And so I start on this journey. And I decided that Fridays are gonna be my weigh-in day, right? So I start the plan, I go a week, Friday comes around, I step on the scale and I look down and the number went down. And I'm like, score, here we go, progress, okay? Then we go another week, work the plan, same thing. Friday comes around, I step on the scale and the number goes down again. I'm like, all right, we're moving, we're grooving, we're making progress. And this was the pattern for weeks and weeks and months. I worked the plan, I did all the things you're supposed to do to get healthy, and it worked. And I lost weight, I got healthier, my clothes fit better, and it was all going so well. And then this one Friday rolls around and I'm all excited, like, let's see what progress I made. And I step up on the scale and the number didn't change. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna step off. We're gonna give it a second and we're gonna try again. We're gonna do like one of these things, like shake it off, whatever. And then we get back on, and of course the number did not change. So I start thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I ate Chipotle yesterday, so maybe the rice is making me retain water. Like, who knows? We'll just go another week and we'll see what happens, right? So I go another week, Friday comes around, I step on the scale, and the number still does not change. So you can imagine my frustration. I'm annoyed because I didn't change anything I was doing. I was still working the plan. I was doing all the things you're supposed to do to get healthy. And then it's like one day I just wake up and I'm not changing anymore. And some of you are here in your faith today. And you're saying, Kristen, I'm working the plan. I'm doing all the things you're telling me to do. I'm living the way the Bible is telling me to live. And yet my life is not changing. And so if that is you this morning, I am so glad you're here because this morning is for you. And I'm going to tell you how to get out of this place. We don't have to stay stuck here, okay? Now, one side note before we keep going. If you are here this morning and this is not you, like maybe you just started following Jesus, you're a new Christian, that is great. You keep doing your thing, keep doing what you're doing. But please do me a favor and file away the things that we are going to talk about today. Because if you do not learn to implement the things that we're going to talk about this morning, I can guarantee you that you will end up here. No question. And I don't want you to end up here. So even if it's not you today, take a mental note, save it for a later date. Sound good? Great, sounds good. Okay, if this is you this morning, you're saying, I'm working the plan's not working, Kristen. I want to challenge you with something. First, I want to say that this is still a good plan. There is nothing wrong with this plan, okay? So before you quit the plan or quit church or quit following Jesus altogether, please hear me. This is still a good plan. Like take my weight loss health plan. What I told you I was doing was a good plan, right? That's what you would tell anybody to do if they're wanting to get healthy. If the plan stopped working, you wouldn't come up to me and say, well, Kristen, I guess you just quit now and go back to eating Taco Bell 4 times a week. No, that's bad advice. I would hope that you would not tell me that. I hope we're better friends than that. No, so I'm not going to tell you that either. You don't quit the plan because the problem is not the plan. The problem comes with how you work the plan. And so what I want you to understand this morning is something that so many Christians never realize. It's something that most people miss, and it's something that keeps so many Christians just stuck and keeps them from experiencing the life change that they're wanting. And that is this right here. This is our big idea for the rest of the morning, okay? What I need you to understand is that if you want to keep progressing, you have to keep pushing. If you want your life to change, if you want to move forward, if you want to keep progressing, you have to keep pushing yourself. You have to keep getting uncomfortable. You have to keep being willing to do things that maybe you think you're not ready for yet. If you want your life to change, if you want to keep progressing, you've got to keep pushing. Think about it like this, going back to the weight loss thing. Let's say that my plan, this was not actually my plan, but let's say my plan was just, Kristen, stop eating Taco Bell and go on 2 30-minute walks a week. That was it. Initially, I probably would have lost some weight. That would have helped, right? But if that's my whole plan for my entire health journey, I'm not making a whole lot of progress long term. I think we can all agree on that, right? No, I had to learn how to push myself. So it wasn't just stop eating Taco Bell. It's, hey, you got to learn to eat some vegetables. And it's not just go on a couple walks a week. No, now you got to start weightlifting. You have to keep pushing yourself if you want to make progress. And the same is true for us spiritually. And what happens a lot of times is when we start following Jesus, we start doing these things in a certain way, and then we think, oh, this is what it's going to look like to follow Jesus for the rest of my life. But just like quitting Taco Bell and going on walks is not going to get me healthy long term. You can't follow Jesus one way and expect your life to keep changing for the rest of your life. If you want to keep progressing, you have to keep pushing. Now, to give you a picture of this, we are going to look at the life of Peter. Peter's life gives us a really great picture of this principle, because if you look at Peter's life throughout Scripture, you'll see that when Peter first started following Jesus, Jesus kind of led him one specific way, and he challenged him in one way. But Jesus didn't continue to lead Peter that exact same way for the rest of Peter's spiritual journey. No, Jesus continued to lead Peter in not only different ways, but in more challenging ways as his spiritual journey progressed. Some of you remember when Peter first followed Jesus, when he first became a disciple. He was a fisherman by trade, had a nice, steady, full-time job, had a boat. Most people didn't have a boat. Peter had a boat, so he's ahead of the game, okay? So Peter's out on his boat one day, just trying to catch some fish, live his life, and Jesus walks up on the shore, and he calls out to Peter, and he says, Peter, I want you to stop fishing for fish, and I want you to come follow me, and I want you to fish for people. And so in that moment, Scripture says, Peter steps out of the boat, and he leaves behind everything and everyone he knows in order to follow Jesus. Leaves behind his livelihood, his job, his family, everything he's comfortable with, everything he's familiar with. He walks away from all of it in order to follow Jesus. And we hear that story and we think like, wow, that's kind of a lot, just starting off. But maybe that was like the big thing for Peter. And he did that, and then that was the expectation. I'm like, okay, I left everything, and now I'm just going to follow Jesus, and we're going to teach, and we're going to preach, and we're going to heal people, and it's going to be great from here on out. But if you read Peter's story, you know that's not how it works. You know that it wasn't just about the one challenge at the beginning. It was Peter going from one challenge to an even bigger challenge, which leads us to episode 2, if you will, of Peter's story, which is where he is in a boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee with the other disciples. And so they're all in this boat, and they look out onto the surface of the water, and they see this figure walking towards them. And at first it scares them to death. They're panicking. They're like, what is this? Is this a ghost? What's happening? But as the figure gets closer, they realize it's Jesus. And so Peter yells out and he goes, Jesus, if that's really you, then call me out on the water to walk with you. So Jesus says, okay, come on, come walk with me. And so again, Peter steps out of the boat, leaves behind what's safe, what's easy, what's comfortable, what everybody else is doing, and he steps onto the water in order to walk towards Jesus. So what's scarier, what's more difficult than leaving behind everything and everyone you know in order to follow Jesus? It's stepping out of a boat onto the water and expecting Jesus to keep you afloat and to keep you from drowning. So we see this pattern start to develop in Peter's life where he's going not just, oh, there's one challenge and then now I'm good, or even there's a couple challenges and that's kind of hard and maybe this is it for me and maybe it'll get easier from here. No, it's one challenge to the next challenge to the next challenge. And to prove that to you, I'm going to show you another challenge that Peter faces later on in his journey in John 21, because if you're a Bible scholar in the room, you know that the 2 stories I just told you are the tip of the iceberg for Peter's challenges, right? So John 21, let me give you a little context because I'm fast forwarding a lot from walking on water to John 21. So John 21, the disciples are having breakfast with Jesus on the beach, and this is after Jesus has been crucified, he's been buried, and he's resurrected. He's risen from the dead. And Peter's feeling a little tension, he's feeling a little uncertainty about where he stands in his relationship with Jesus, because when Jesus was being crucified, Peter completely abandoned him. Like, just left him in his darkest hour, denied even knowing who he was. And so Peter is feeling the weight of that decision, and he's a little uncertain about where he stands with Jesus. So that's the vibe, if you will, of this story, where we're going to drop in John 21, starting in verse 15. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Talking about the other disciples. Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Well, Jesus said, feed my lambs. It's a little weird response when someone tells you they love you, right? But I promise it'll make sense. We keep going. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus said, take care of my sheep. So basically the same exchange, right? Next verse. The 3rd time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was, what's that word? Hurt. Peter was hurt. He's frustrated. Why? Because Jesus asked him for the 3rd time, do you love me? So he's frustrated. Like, Jesus, what are you not getting? You're asking if I love you? I'm saying I love you. Like, pay attention. But he says, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus says again, feed my sheep. Now, these next couple verses are going to give us some context around what in the world Jesus is talking about when he's saying, feed my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep. So Jesus keeps going, talking to Peter, and he says, very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And then he said to him, follow me. So let me explain what's going on here. Basically, Jesus is saying, Peter, I still want you to be my disciple. I still want you to follow me. Yes, I know you messed up. Yes, I know you denied me. I forgive you for all of that. I still want you to be my disciple. And I want you to take care of my sheep. In other words, I want you to take care of my people. I want you to teach people how to follow me and to have a relationship with me. And if you do, it is going to cost you everything. It is going to cost you your life. And we know that because when Jesus says here, when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go, Jesus is foreshadowing the fact that Peter is one day going to be crucified for his faith. So what's scarier than stepping out of a boat and expecting Jesus to keep you above the water and keep you from drowning. It's living your whole entire life knowing that one day you're going to die on a cross for what you believe. And I'm not telling you that this morning to say like, oh, if you keep following Jesus, then we're all going to die martyrs' deaths and we're all going to be crucified. Like, no, I'm not telling you that at all. But what I am trying to get across is that the paradigm for Peter's life is the same paradigm for our lives. And that is, same thing. If you want to keep progressing, you've got to keep pushing. If you want your life to change, if you want things to move forward, if you want to not stay stuck, then you have got to learn to say yes to every challenge that Jesus puts in front of you, just like Peter said yes to the challenges that Jesus put in front of him. If you want to keep progressing, you've got to keep pushing. Growing up, I was a basketball player. I loved playing basketball. Played for 11 years. And my very first year I played was my second grade year. This was me. Oh, thank you. Yes. Bangs, buck teeth, and all, right? It was great. Great time. So second grade was my first year playing basketball. And my dad actually coached me for 10 of my 11 seasons that I played, which was really cool, including my second grade year. So as I'm in second grade, my dad's the one really teaching me the basics of how to play second grade girls church league basketball, okay? So he's teaching me how to dribble, and he's teaching me how to pass, and he's teaching me how to shoot, and he's teaching me the difference between offense and defense, right? The very basic stuff you need to know to play basketball in second grade. And it went great. And I had the best time, and it was so fun, and I loved it. Now, something y'all need to know about me. If I love something, I want to be really good at it, okay? And I'm very competitive. Like, ask my life group. Don't play catchphrase with me unless you want to win, okay? I'm not here to mess around. Like, we're going to win and we're going to go, okay? So I'm very competitive. So as soon as I loved basketball, I knew I wanted to be good at it. And I knew deep down that if I wanted to keep making progress as a basketball player, I had to keep pushing myself in my basketball skills, right? So one of the things I really kind of zoned in on was my shooting. I was a shooter. And I loved to shoot, okay? That was my thing. So by the time I was in middle school, I got really good at what was called mid-range shooting. Now, before you zone out, if you're not a basketball person, I'm going to explain this very quickly and very clearly. So don't, just stay with me, okay? This is half of a basketball court, all right? This is the goal. This is the three-point line, okay? Middle school, I got really good at mid-range shooting. That means I was shooting in these areas typically right here. Oh. You just got a sneak peek of what I'm about to say. But I was shooting really well right here. That was my thing. I was a mid-range shooter. And man, if you took too long to guard me, I was popping that shot, and I was very confident that it was going in. Like, that was my thing. And so throughout middle school, that was my role. Well, when I get to about 8th grade, my dad comes to me, and he says, Kristen, if you're going to be a good, successful shooter at the varsity level, you have to learn how to shoot three-pointers. You can't just keep shooting mid-range forever. You've got to learn how to shoot three-pointers. And at first I was like, you know, Dad, I think I'm good. I think I'm fine. You know, middle schoolers, they know everything, right? I was like, I think I'm fine. I'm really good at mid-range shooting. I'll be the best mid-range shooter this varsity team has ever seen. Like, this is just so easy for me, and this is so great, and I don't need to worry about that, and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And he just, because he knew better, kept on me. Kristen, you've got to learn to shoot three-pointers if you're going to be on varsity. If you're going to be a shooter on varsity, you got to hit three-pointers. I was like, fine. And so I started working on three-pointers. And sure enough, I learned, shocker, right? My dad was right. And if I wanted to succeed at the varsity level, I had to shoot three-pointers. Why? Because what served me well in middle school was not going to serve me well in high school. And some of you are here this morning, and when it comes to your faith, you're shooting mid-range shots still. You're shooting that mid-range shot of, I come to church every other week, and it's great, and it works for my schedule, and it's so easy, it's just part of the routine now, but then you wonder why your life's not changing. Or maybe your mid-range shot is the fact that you read your Bible for 5 minutes every day. And at first that was really tough, but now you're really good at it. And it's part of your morning routine, and it's so easy, and it's so great, and you don't really need to do any more than that, right? But then you're not making any progress. And you wonder why. Why? Because it's time to start pushing yourself. It's time to start shooting some three-pointers. Maybe your mid-range shot is the fact that you've been a greeter for 4 years. And you love it. And those are your people. And you love showing up every Sunday morning and smiling and greeting and laughing and all the things. And it's so easy. And you love your team. And you're comfortable there. And then you wonder why your life's not changing. Because it's time to start pushing yourself. It's time to start shooting some three-pointers. if you want to keep progressing, you've got to keep pushing. If you hear nothing else I say today, please hear this. Like, I want you saying this in your head when you're walking to your car this afternoon, okay? If you want to keep progressing, you have got to keep pushing. Now, maybe you're like, okay, Kristen, I get it. I'm not happy about it, but I get it, right? I've got to keep pushing myself. I've got to learn how to shoot 3-pointers, right? But what does that look like practically for me? Like, how am I supposed to implement this? What's my next step? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Well, I'm going to answer your question with a question, which is, what are you scared to do? What are you scared to do? Because so often, doing the thing you're scared to do is what pushing yourself looks like. It's doing the thing that's out of your comfort zone. It's doing the thing that makes you nervous. Just like me shooting 3-pointers. The reason I didn't want to do it at first terrified me. I was scared to fail. I was scared to look dumb if I missed a bunch of shots. I was scared what other people were going to think of me. I was scared I was going to be a bad shooter now. All these fears rise to the surface, and then I realized, well, if I'm going to push myself, I got to do the thing I'm scared to do. And so, what are you scared to do? Now, to make this really practical, I am going to break this down as to what this looks like when it comes to pushing yourself in your connection with God, your connection with people, and your connection with purpose. So you walk out here today and you know exactly what to do for your next step, okay? So let's get into this. What does it look like first to push yourself in connecting with God? There's a girl in my high school life group that I lead. Her name's McKenna. And I first met McKenna at camp last year. And I got really close with her. She was in my small group at camp. And the very first day at camp, McKenna comes up to me and she goes, Kristen, I just need you to know I'm terrified to pray out loud. So please don't ask me to do that this week, okay? I'm scared what other people are going to think of me. I'm scared I'm going to say the wrong thing. People are going to judge me. They're going to laugh at me. Like, I don't want to do it. So please don't ask me to pray out loud, okay? And I just kind of smile and try to encourage her, right? Okay. So then 2 days go by and we get split into these little prayer groups, and 2 people from each group were supposed to pray out loud. And I just so happened to get in McKenna's group. And so I look at her and go, McKenna, I think you should pray. And she looks at me all with so much fear in her eyes, and also a look of like, Kristen, I'm going to kill you for this later, okay? Which is fine, I still love her. But she had a choice in that moment, right? Was she gonna do the thing that she was scared to do or not? And I'm so proud of her because she did. And she prayed out loud. And then, guess what? The next day, she comes up to me and says, Kristen, I prayed for some girl from a random church today at camp. I was like, that's amazing, that's so cool. Then we get home from camp, McKenna joins the prayer team. She's praying for people all the time now. And as a result, McKenna's life has changed over and over and over again, and she just keeps making progress. Why? Because she's willing to do the thing that scared her and pushing her connection with God. So I'm going to ask you a very specific question on what this looks like, which is, what are you scared to give up? What are you scared to give up in order to push yourself in your connection with God? Because more often than not, pushing yourself closer to God means walking away from something else. McKenna had to leave behind her preoccupation with what other people were going to think of her. She had to give up on that in order to do the thing that scared her. So what does that look like for you? Are you scared to give up your time? Maybe you're that person that comes to church every other week and you're like, this feels really scary. That's a lot of time to come every single week, but what if that's your next step? Are you scared to give up your sleep? You know you need to be reading your Bible and praying more, and you've either got to wake up earlier or stay up later to do it, and you're already exhausted, but what if that is your next step? Are you scared to give up a friendship or a relationship? Maybe you're dating somebody, and you know that if you really want to go all in on following Jesus, you've got to break up with that person. And that's a scary thing. But what if that's the thing that is standing in between you and the life change that you are wanting to experience? What are you scared to give up in order to push yourself in connecting with God? Let's keep going. Let's talk about pushing yourself and connecting with people. This one hits home for me, y'all. This was me a couple years ago. Okay, so if you think just because somebody's up here, they don't struggle with this, think again, okay? So some of you know this, some of you don't, but me and my husband, Kevin, moved here to Northern Kentucky from Atlanta, Georgia, 6 weeks after we got married in order for Kevin to take the job as the youth pastor and the associate pastor. And we got up here and we loved it immediately. We still do. We love this church. We love our friends. We love the community. We love everything about it. So everything's going really well. But then a few months into us living here, we hit a really rough season in our marriage. Like we were really struggling. And on top of the fact that we were really struggling, I did not tell a soul that we were struggling because I was embarrassed. Honestly, like my husband's a pastor. Like, shouldn't we have this figured out? Shouldn't we, be setting an example for people, right? People can't know we're struggling. And also, we haven't even been married a year. Why is it already this hard? Why are we already struggling this much? I hear a couple chuckles from you people that have been married a long time, okay? But seriously, we were struggling so much and I was so embarrassed I didn't tell anybody. And the change did not start happening and the progress did not start happening until we did the thing that we were scared to do, which was get vulnerable and open up and be honest and share what was really going on. And when we did that, I'm not saying our marriage just changed overnight, but it started making progress fast. Because this church just rallied around us in the coolest way. They loved on us, they prayed for us, they encouraged us, they, held us accountable, they found us a marriage counselor, like all the things. And by the grace of God, our marriage is in a very different place than it was 2 years ago. But that did not start until we shared what we were scared to share. And so I'm gonna ask you the very same question. What are you scared to share? What are you scared to share? What's that one thing that you have not told anybody yet? You may have been in a group for years and there's still this one thing you're just holding so close to the vest that you don't want anybody to know. You don't want anybody to know about your anger problem. You don't want anybody to know how many drinks you have when you get home from work every night. You don't want anybody to know how much credit card debt you have. You don't want anybody to know how you've started looking at pornography again. What's that one thing that you're scared to share? Because friend, let me tell you, I've been in your seat. And that thing is going to keep you stuck until you are willing to push yourself in connecting with people and share the thing you're scared to share. Lastly, let's talk about pushing yourself in connection with your purpose. One of mine and Kevin's really good friends, his name is Clay. And we met Clay a few weeks after we moved here. And he started serving in Bridge Youth with us on Wednesday nights. He's been with us in Bridge Youth ever since. We were in a life group with him for a couple years. So we've gotten really close with Clay. And as our life group was kind of winding down after the 2-year period, Clay told us that he felt like the Lord was nudging him to lead his own life group. And so we asked him about it one day. We're like, Clay, how you feeling about leading your own life group? And he's like, I'm really excited. And I'm also kind of terrified, right? Because all these fears and all these what ifs start rising to the surface. What if somebody asks me a question and I don't know how to answer them? What if somebody has a problem and I don't know how to fix it? What if there's a conflict and I'm the one that has to help resolve it? Me and Clay are both like that. We're like, nope, no conflict, no thank you, please, okay? So, but all these what ifs and all these fears start rising to the surface, and so Clay had a choice. And thankfully, Clay said yes, and he still did the thing that he was scared to do. And not only have we watched Clay's life change, and Clay make so much great progress in his life and in his faith over the last few months, but we've also seen so many of the people in his life group, their lives are changing too. We've got a lot of friends in that life group. It's a 20s life group. I was not invited to be in this group because, as my husband lovingly reminds me, I aged out by the time that signups happened, which I'm just slightly bitter about, but I'll get over it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, this life group, it's going so well. All this life change is happening. Why? Because Clay did the thing that he was scared to do. And so for you, what does that look like to do the thing you're scared to do? Are you scared to join the prayer team on Sunday mornings? Because you're worried somebody's going to come up and ask you to pray for something and you have no clue what to say. But what if that's what pushing yourself looks like? Maybe you're scared to join an outreach team because you might talk to somebody who doesn't come to church. They're going to have all these questions about Jesus and the Bible and the bridge and all this stuff, and what if you don't know how to answer them? But what if that's your next step? Maybe you're scared to come volunteer on Wednesday nights at Bridge Youth. Y'all didn't think the youth pastor's wife's going to get up here and not talk about Bridge Youth, did you? But seriously, I get it. You might be one of those people that thinks 13-year-olds are the scariest people on the planet. And I'm not going to confirm or deny that, honestly. I'll just let you have your own opinion on that. But I get it. But what if saying yes to that stands in between you and experiencing the life change that you have been so desperately wanting? What does it look like for you to do the thing you're scared to do? Because remember, If you want to keep progressing, you got to keep pushing. And pushing means doing the thing you're scared to do. I would like to think that, by the way, what I'm about to say is not in the Bible, so don't go looking for it. This is just my own general wonderings, okay? I would like to think that when Peter got to the end of his life, he had lived his life, he died, he went to heaven, and he's looking back on his life on earth. I would like to think that he said something like, gosh, I remember the day that Jesus walked up to me when I was in my fishing boat and he told me to stop fishing for fish and to come follow him and to fish for people. And I remember being excited, but I also remember being really scared to leave behind everything to follow him. But looking back, I'm so glad I did. And I remember the day that Jesus called me out to walk on the water with him. And every fiber of my being in that moment was like, what are you doing? You are crazy. This could kill you. What are you doing? But I'm so glad I stepped out of the boat anyway, because my life was never the same because of it. And I remember the day that I was sitting on the beach having breakfast with Jesus, and he looked at me and he said, Peter, I want you to follow me. I want you to feed my sheep. I want you to take care of my people, and it's gonna cost you your life. And he was right. It did cost me my life. It cost me a lot. But if I could go back, I'd say yes again, because it changed my life forever. That's the kind of thing I want you to say when you get to the end of your life. I do not want you to get 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, however many years you got left down the road and be like, man, I lived a really comfortable, easy life. That was pretty great, honestly. Like, no, that's not what I want you to say at all. What I want you to say is, man, following Jesus was something else. And there were a lot of really good moments, but there were a lot of really tough moments too. And I faced a lot of challenges, and I had to get uncomfortable a lot, and I had to make a lot of sacrifices. And yes, it cost me some things to follow Jesus. And I just had to keep pushing myself over and over and over again. But if I could go back, I'd do it all again, because every single time I said yes to Jesus, he just changed my life over and over and over again. That is what I want you to be able to say. But for that to be the case, you have to embrace this. If you want your life to change, if you want to get unstuck, if you want to keep progressing, you've got to keep pushing. Let me pray for you guys. God, thank you so much for all you've done for us. Lord, thank you that we get the chance to follow you and have a relationship with you. And Lord, you faced the ultimate challenge when you died for us and took the punishment for our sins, and we'll be forever grateful for that. And so God, I pray for each of us as we walk out of this room today that you would give us boldness, that you would give us courage, that you would give us hope and great expectation as we continue to say yes to whatever challenges you put in our path. And God, I pray for every single person in this room that one day when they get to the end of their life, they will be able to say, man, I'm so glad I said yes to Jesus, because it changed my life forever. God, we just love you so much, and we're so grateful for you, and we ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.